Hello and welcome to Week 7 of Iowa Prep Sports Postgame. Nathan Ford with the Gazette here. District titles on the line around the state. Some just great games elsewhere, especially in Class 5A over at John Wall Field tonight. Number 7 Prairie in Class 5A hosting number 1 Southeast Polk. A few fans you might recognize there on the sideline. I'm going to turn things over to KJ Pilcher, who was there for the whole thing.
I'm KJ Pilcher from the Gazette, reporting from John Wall Field, where top-ranked Southeast Polk, actually our co-number 1 with Cedar Rapids Kennedy, escapes with a 21-20 victory over number 7 Cedar Rapids Prairie. Game comes down to the very end. Prairie drives down to Southeast Polk 19, but the Rams block a 36-yard field goal attempt to secure the victory and improve to 6-1 overall. Prairie ends up 5-2 after this game. This game started out in favor of Southeast Polk. 2 big touchdowns early on. Abu Sama with a 31-yard touchdown run on the opening possession after the Rams block a Prairie punt and take over at the 40. 2 plays later at 7-0 in favor of the Rams. On the next possession, it was Jackson Daly to Cole Falloon. Of course, those two will come up again here shortly. But a 40-yard touchdown pass for a 14-0 victory. Then it was Prairie. Prairie took control. Braxton Martin with a big interception of Daly at the goal line. He returns it to the 38, and then Prairie puts on a nice show running the ball. Finally got things together in the rush game. Went 62 yards for a score. Brandon Vlecko drove in from 2 yards out. Then the second half, Prairie ended up with 2 touchdowns to take a 20-14 lead when the point after attempt was no good. 2 touchdown runs by Mikhail Taylor, 1 yard, and then the 18-yard gave Prairie its first lead in the fourth quarter. But then a flea flicker pass from Daly to Falloon, 52 yards for a score, and that ends up being the decisive touchdown. Prairie unable to score late because of that blocked field goal. So really good battle between top 10 teams. It ends up going the way of Southeast Polk and more than likely staying atop our Class 4A polls. Back to you, Nathan.
The other number 1 team, that's right, we had a tie this week in our poll. Cedar Rapids Kennedy actually played on Thursday. The Cougars beat Davenport West 43-0 to move to 7-0. Southeast Polk now 6-1 with that loss to Ankeny earlier this year. And Kennedy is actually now the last unbeaten team in 5A. That's because Pleasant Valley knocked off number 4 Iowa City High 31-14 on Friday. In Class 4A, it was a top 10 clash at Saints Field with the district title on the line. Here's Jeff Linder.
Hey, it's Jeff Linder from Saints Field, where second-ranked Cedar Rapids Xavier took control of the Class 4A District 4 race tonight with a 34-7 victory over Clear Creek Amana. The story of the game came in the first half, just complete dominance on both sides of the ball for the Saints. The first 3 drives, 66 yards in 10 plays, 84 yards in 14 plays, 94 yards in 15 plays. The Saints had the ball almost 20 minutes in the first half, led 21-0. Will Heiseroth did most of the damage for the Saints in the first half, carried the ball 27 times for 166 yards. Finished the game with 188 yards on 31 carries. Scored a pair of touchdowns in the first half. Final score again, 34-7. Xavier finished with 427 yards of offense, 213 for Clear Creek Amana. The Saints are 6-1 overall, 3-0 in the district. Clear Creek Amana is 5-2 and 2-1. Again, the final score again, 34-7. Xavier over Clear Creek Amana. This is Jeff Linder from Saints Field. Back to you, Nathan.
Another Class 4A District 4 game over at Kingston Stadium. Brian Plegancool has the details from Cedar Rapids, Washington, and Newton.
It's a final from Kingston Stadium. Cedar Rapids, Washington scored 28 fourth-quarter points en route to a 43-23 win in a 4A District 4 battle over Newton. Washington's defense was stout, holding Newton to 201 total yards of offense, many coming in desperation mode in the fourth quarter. The Washington defense sacked quarterback Xavier Arguello 6 times. The Warriors had 11 total tackles for loss. Washington led 15-13 at half, and while neither team scored in the third, the fourth belonged to the Warriors. Watts McBride had 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns, and quarterback Reed Ortiz completed 11 of 23 passes for 80 yards and 2 TDs. Back to you, Nathan.
Elsewhere in 4A, number 1 North Scott stayed unbeaten with a 41-7 win over Clinton. 8th-ranked Indianola bounced back from last week's loss to Norwalk by beating Carlisle 38-14. And Webster City took down number 9 Spencer 21-7. That's a really good Lynx team that just picked up a couple of losses earlier this season to some other ranked teams. Class 3A's top 2 teams both faced ranked foes in Week 7, and they both put up a lot of points. Number 1 Harlan beat 10th-ranked Adel ADM 58-30. Number 2 Boynton Hull Rock Valley beat number 8 Sergeant Bluff Luton 35-10. I think you could really go either way with the Cyclones or Nighthawks in the top spot there in 3A, and there's some teams in Eastern Iowa that are going to have a say about that as well. 3A is just a really stacked class that just hasn't seen a ton of movement in the rankings because we had Harlan and Boynton Hull Rock Valley as our preseason 1 and 2. Over here in Eastern Iowa, 3rd-ranked West Delaware over Hampton Dumont Cal 41-3 sets up a huge rivalry game next week with number 6 Independence. Both Independence undefeated, West Delaware just the 1 loss to Xavier. Number 4 Solon beat Fairfield 56-7. That was a 5-1 Fairfield team that the Spartans beat. And number 7 Nevada beat Algona 28-14. The Bulldogs have been on the fringe of the rankings, even cracked into the top 10 a couple of times, so that's a good win for the Cubs there. And how about Benton Community? The Bobcats are now 6-1 with a 23-3 win over Davenport Assumption. Their only loss came way back in Week 1 to Grinnell in overtime. It might be time to rank the Benton Bobcats in 3A. Class 2A's game of the night, of course, came in a stacked District 2, where number 3 Ida Grove OABCIG beat number 5 Esterville Lincoln Central 22-21. Just another classic game in that district up in western Iowa. Elsewhere, it was top-ranked Southeast Valley over Pocahontas area 40-3. And in Eastern Iowa, number 4 Waukon beat Jessup 26-14. 10th-ranked North Fayette Valley beat Union Community 27-21. Number 10 Williamsburg clinched the district title with a 41-8 win over Davis County. Class 1A's top teams cruised again. That's another stacked class. Number 1 Van Meter beat Interstate 35 43-0. Number 2 Underwood hung 70 on West Monona, 70-0 win. And Jeff Johnson was in Iowa City for a rivalry game between the Regina Regals and the West Branch Bears.
How's it going, everyone? Jeff Johnson from the Gazette here at Iowa City Regina High School, where we have a final score in a Class 1A District 5 encounter between Iowa City Regina and West Branch. The Regals winning this one 26-8 to clinch the District 5 championship. Regina is 7-0 as it approaches its regular season finale next week. Obviously on to the playoffs. West Branch is 5-2. This game was dominated up front on both sides of the football by Regina, which was able to stifle West Branch's offensive attack, especially on the ground in this one, and get 183 yards rushing in the game. From running back Levi Daniel. Daniel had 3 touchdowns in this game as well. Didn't start out well for Regina. A airmailed center snap on the very first play of the game ended up going backwards after a wild scramble 33 yards, and the officials ruled out of the end zone before a West Branch player could hop on it for a West Branch safety. Daniel came back with a touchdown run on the ensuing possession for Regina. Then we had a defensive touchdown fumble recovery by Drake Berry after a Regina completion. He ran it back 9 yards for a touchdown, giving West Branch a lead after the missed extra point of 8-6, but it was all Regina from there. As I mentioned, Daniel was huge in this game with his 183 yards rushing on just 22 attempts. Once again, the final score here, Iowa City Regina 26 and West Branch 8. Thanks for watching, everybody. It's Jeff Johnson from the Gazette.
Regina ranked number 3 in Class 1A. Number 4 Dyke New Hartford, playing a ranked opponent tonight, beat number 10 Denver 35-10. In Class A, number 1 West Hancock shut out St. Ansgar 35-0. That sets up a big game with a North Butler team that is also undefeated and in the rankings. Upset of the night, well, there might have been a couple of them in Class A. Tri-Center over number 3 Woodbury Central 26-23. And number 7 North Tama was shut out by Wapsie Valley 14-0. Number 9 Southwest Valley got a close call from an Oakland Riverside team that was in the rankings a few weeks ago. The Timberwolves win it 15-12. Battle of 8 player unbeatens, the Eddie Burgess show. Number 2 Montezuma ends up beating Baxter 45-24, handing the Bolts their first loss. Number 6 Gladbrook Rhinebeck takes its first loss to Don Bosco 42-36. The Dons had a couple early season losses, but they've been hanging around since then, and that was a big win for them over the Rebels. Number 7 Turkey Valley handed Don Bosco one of those losses in overtime earlier this year. The Trojans beat Tripola 46-12. Number 10 Lansing Key cracked the rankings this week. The Hawks beat Midland 48-20. That's going to do it for Week 7 of Iowa Prep Sports Postgame. One more week of the regular season for the small schools, 2 more weeks for the big schools. And we're going to have plenty of playoff breakdowns to go along with these highlights, postgame reports, and scores as we go along. Now is when the real fun starts to begin. Playoff implications, district titles already being won. There's going to be some great games here in the next few weeks, and we hope you'll tune in here on Iowa Prep Sports Postgame, whether by video, audio, on demand, or live. Thanks again for watching.